morning, everybody. It's really a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to our Access to Apprenticeships webinar. We're really lucky at Migrant Leaders to have three apprentices that are working in big companies, able to speak to us about their experiences in applying for and taking part in apprenticeships. So I'm going to hand over the time to the three of them, and I will ask you to let me know in the chat, if you can, where you're joining us from in the country, and also whereabouts you, which sort of sector, what sort of company you're interested in applying for apprenticeships for. Did that question make sense? I hope it did. So we want to know whereabouts in the country you're applying from, or joining us from rather, and what sort of apprenticeship you want to apply for. That'd be really handy for us to know. So do put that in the chat, and then any other questions that you've got in the chat, you can add those as well, and we'll make time to raise your questions and get the guys to answer. Okay, so I'll start sharing my screen in a second, and then I shall ask Jaden to start his presentation. So over to you, Jaden.
Hello, everybody. It seems like we've got some diverse areas. Leicester, Gloucester, Birmingham. Thank you for all joining us this morning. Yeah, I'm Jaden Black. I'm a consultant at PwC. I'm going to go into a little bit about what that means. To start, PwC is a management consultancy firm. They work in many areas of professional services, so audit, tax, accounting, operations, and stuff like that. PwC has been a large company. They've been around for many years. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about me as well. So the subjects I did at A-level were sociology, computer science, and business. Now, as you can see, I went to Prendergast School, Prendergast sixth form. And before that, I went to Addy and Stanhope Secondary School. So computer science was one of my favourite subjects, surprisingly, looking at the grade. But I did BTEC business as well, so it does show that you can do a BTEC if that's what you fancy, if that's what you're interested in, to move forward into the apprenticeship space. And I did A-level sociology, which was a subject that I thoroughly enjoyed when I was in school. Moving forward, whilst I was at school, I wanted to find a way to diversify myself in the interview processes. So I knew when you were to apply to an apprenticeship, they are very competitive. It isn't easy to get. So I'd say to make sure that you always have something that you can refer and talk about, even if that being in a sports team, if that's running a marathon. There are many things that can diversify you from the rest of the application group. I started volunteering at the British Heart Foundation, and I did that for around 2 years at PwC. Sorry, at British Heart Foundation. There's something I thoroughly enjoyed doing. I'd admit there was times where I thought, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. Why am I doing this today? But it really is important to, in many aspects, to let that the pride go and make sure that you are doing the right thing for you and the right thing for your future. After finishing A-levels, I started at PwC. So I didn't go to uni. Didn't do a gap year. I finished straight away and then started at PwC, thankful enough to get an offer. Before joining PwC, I did a New World, New Skills work experience, which was a 1-week work experience program. Work experience is very important. It can show you what doors are out there, what you want to do with your future, etc., etc. From that, I got a fast track offer, which allowed me to join in the next cohort. My life at PwC, I started in risk management. Risk is where there are many different rotations, many different sectors that you can start off as an apprentice. You get to rotate around, so you get to experience many aspects of the business. Risk management is where you help protect the firm liably. You help protect the firm through reputational risk, through business risk, through operational risk, and you help them maintain a risk-averse status within the market, which was something that I thoroughly enjoyed. Then I got to move on and where I'm currently sitting today in global L&D, global learning and development, where that is helping aligning the skills profile and aligning skills not even just in the UK but globally. So I get the opportunity to work with people from countries such as France, people from countries such as India very recently, and America. And it also shows us opportunities to travel. So just to have a little bit of a quiz, I want you to all take your guesses. How many countries do you think PwC operate in? I'll just leave your answers in the chat. Higher, higher than 100 or higher than 150. So yeah, whoever said 150, I was a bit mean there, but 150 is just about correct. We operate in 152 countries worldwide. We are one of the top 100 graduate employers, so the number one employer in the Times for graduating numerous times. 328,000 employees worldwide. So it's a very big network of people you can join in, and we have 19 offices across the UK. So PwC has been around for a very long time. It's a very big company, and you'll be very thankful to be able to join a professional services firm such as that. Mm. So yeah, how can students join PwC? So there's the virtual insight program for years 11 and years 12, where you can spend, I believe, 2 days working virtually for PwC, and it will provide you with some good work experience moving forward and on to put into your CV. The school and college leaver programs, that is something that I joined, leaving straight from school. So in business, you can do the consultant program, which is a level 4 program. The Flying Start degree, which is a combination of university and PwC experience. So there's a few fields you can join: accountancy, business, and technology. Importantly, to flag that the business Flying Start degree, I believe, is based in Northern Ireland. So if that is something you're very interested in, you can pursue it that way. And there are many routes for students who are in university, so many experiences that you can do. We had the Black Women in Business very recently, and there's many ways you can join on from there. And there are genuinely a lot of fantastic career opportunities at PwC. I know that as an apprentice, you shouldn't limit yourself. I've had the opportunities, or will have the opportunities to be traveling my second year of my apprenticeship. So I know people that have been offered to travel to Saudi Arabia for work if there's a project out there, or even France, Normandy, America, or Brooklyn, for example. But yeah, move forward. So yeah, that would conclude the end of my presentation. If you have any more questions, feel free to message me on LinkedIn, where you can see my LinkedIn profile.
Actually, Jaden, why don't we give everybody a bit of a chance to ask questions now rather than write you on LinkedIn? They can do that later on. If
Yeah,
anyone has
definitely,
any
definitely.
questions for Jaden right now, please either put your virtual hand up using the Zoom tools or turn your microphone on and ask your question. Or you can put it in the chat and I will ask a question for you. No? Sounds like everybody's a bit too shy at the moment. Okay, here's a question. Is it a degree apprenticeship or how does it work?
Yeah, the Flying Start apprenticeships are degree apprenticeships. So for the tech and accounting, I know you can study at plenty of unis. I think they're Queen Mary in the UK, Queen Mary, King's, and there are a few outside, so Newcastle and Birmingham, and you will continue to get a degree of that. So an accountancy degree or a technological degree. And for the business one, you will have one in operations. And it is fully funded. So PwC will fully cover whatever costs of coming to uni that will entail. So yeah, it is a degree apprenticeship, and it is an opportunity that's very much out there for people.
Okay, we've got some more questions coming in. I think so if you can tell us what drew you to PwC, Jaden.
What drew me to PwC, I did a 1 week work experience, as I said, but it was the ability to see that I could fit in, that I could belong. You should always try. You shouldn't see the difficulty in an opportunity and sign yourself up from him, or else you'll miss so many opportunities in life. And I believe that I could join. I saw, I could tell a funny story. I saw people using the coffee machine at work, and I was like, "This is posh. This is fancy." So that's something that heavily incentivized my joining. But I was also just seeing the work that they carried out and thinking that I could support. I am good enough to do this. So that's what inspired me.
Great stuff. There are a couple more questions which I'm going to hold on to because
Hmm.
I think that some of those will come out in the other presentations, and we can come back to Fatima and Sarmad's questions towards after everybody has spoken, after Hamza and Elamaran have spoken. So Jaden, thank you very much. That was really enlightening. And I will now hand over to Hamza. Hamza Hanif. Thank you, Hamza. Bear with me, I'm going to move your slides.
Thank you. So I am Hamza Hanif. That's a lovely green bit on the thing. Anyway, I'm Hamza Hanif. I'm a relationship management apprentice at NatWest. Next slide, please. I am Pakistani. I'm based in Luton, but I work in the London office and travel a bit around the UK for work. So I've been in Birmingham, Nottingham, Maiden, something further down south, but mainly London. I have came straight from college into my apprenticeship. That's a mug.
I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. I don't know who put that green line on the screen, but could you please take it off?
Is that maybe me? Because I did try something. Maybe I didn't. Is it
Did
me?
you use the whiteboard or something? Yeah, it's gone now.
Oh, it was me. Okay, sorry.
No, don't apologise. Do you want to start again?
Sure. So, I studied economics, finance, and enterprise in college. Very sort of finance-oriented subjects. I knew I kind of wanted to get either into law or finance, and I kind of came to that decision of finance after learning a bit about sort of what my family do. I have a little bit of experience in door-to-door sales and healthcare. Those sort of really pushed my boundaries out and kind of allowed me to feel like, yes, I can work with people, customer facing roles and stuff like that within the industry. I'm currently studying for two qualifications. It's the Chartered Bankers Institute under no, it's the Professional Bankers Certificate, which is the PBC under the Chartered Bankers Institute. It's the Senior Financial Services Customer Advisor, mouthful, under BPP. One of them is sort of mainly coursework and the other one is purely exam based, so it's really mixed. Going into sort of, I saw a question around how things split up. For me, at least, I have a really compact work schedule. So I have one of my days dedicated toward my apprenticeship, and the rest of my days are all around working, basically. And I got to decide that. I kind of arranged it with my manager during my induction, saying, what would you like to do? So I decided, let me get all of Friday off because I'm also Muslim. So it also gives me the time to go for Jummah on Friday and also balance the studying at the same time. So I hope that this session will allow you guys to feel a lot more confident when it comes to doing your assessments, doing your interviews, and how to kind of manage things or what to expect. Next slide, please. So, big thing that a lot of people are really, really interested in when they always ask for advice is apprenticeship applications. And I try not to really give the basic advice because I know that you might reach out to someone, come out your comfort zone, and then they give you something that you already know. So starting off quite small is organization. It's a very, very key factor and it plays a big part in how you perform. You don't want to kind of throw yourself into 5, 6 applications and then you have deadlines for multiple firms on one day and then you're kind of struggling, oh God, what I got to do. And by the time you get to your last one, you're thinking, God, I don't want to do it anymore. So I would recommend using either Google Calendar, something like that, or Notion, kind of spreading out your days and strategically applying for things so it fits around maybe if you're studying, if you're working, and allowing it, because it can get so stressful and so draining that if you don't really do this, you're just going to want to give up by the time you're not even halfway there. I was taught something a few months back, around last year, June, around what you do for your assessment centers and your online assessments. It's something called Motivation Fit. it's essentially a purpose as to why you're applying for this said firm. So for me, at least, I really wanted to go for NatWest. Starting off, NatWest is a very major bank in the UK. But for me, I saw something on social media around January 2024. It was this guy who essentially joined NatWest with an apprenticeship scheme, but he had disabilities. He wasn't doing great in college, yet they still took him on. And that kind of showed me that, yes, they are inclusive, which is what one of their key values are. So that was, for me, my motivation fit. That's my purpose for applying for this firm, because it drew me to them even more. With STAR technique, some of you might know what it is, some of you might not know. It's essentially how you answer situational questions. So if you're asked, how did you demonstrate confidence or adaptability in this scenario, you usually follow this specific technique. It's situation, task, action, and result. I have added an R, and the R is for reflection. Usually a lot of people don't really utilize this, and it's where you go back and you think, you went through this whole situation, but how would you go again and do this in a better way? This shows employers that you're also able to think for the future, and how are you going to become better going forward? How can you make minor mistakes, less mistakes, and kind of reach your potential? A big thing I've heard a lot around work with my boss is kind of stretching to your limits. How elastic can you be? How far can you go with your limits? Now, for me at least, before I had my first job, I wasn't very extroverted. I was a very introverted individual. I never sort of went to people out of my own sort of way. I kind of stuck within my group. But then I got thrown into a first-time job in door-to-door sales, which was a nightmare to begin with. But it did teach me a lot, and that's where I learned a lot of my interpersonal skills. So trying to kind of step out your comfort zone, it doesn't have to be through work experience or a part-time job. It can just be experience in the classroom. How have you helped people? How have you stood out? How have you tried your best? And kind of utilizing that and showing it greatly to employers shows how you can work with people. Because at the end of the day, when you're being interviewed, you're not being interviewed just for your grade, your requirements. They kind of want to work with you. They want to see if you're going to be a good colleague to work for this team. Will you get along with them? Can you get with the banter? Sort of stuff like that. The last thing I'd mention is adaptability. Kind of, you might be thrown really weird questions. For me, at least, I have quite a nice story. My first ever application was with EY, and I had no idea what to expect. And I was starting the online assessment, and I completely I literally closed my monitor, my laptop, and I said, I can't do this. So over time, I became more adaptable. You get sort of a lot of situations where you're thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? But it's about how you adapt to the situation and how you can show it to your employers. Because at the end of the day, it's how you present the story. You could be doing something amazing, which can reflect amazingly on how you could be a great colleague. But if you can't present it the correct way, then it's more difficult for them to find out the real you. I had a mock interview in around June time, and I was asked a question of, are you best working independently or with a team? And for me, at least, I was never asked that question before. And I didn't sort of panic. I kind of just I stood there and I didn't really react. I was processing, and then I reacted, and then I answered the question. And from the feedback with that mock interview, I was told that the way I handled that question was great, because I showed that I'm not really going crazy under pressure. I'm not panicking. I assess the situation and then answer. Next slide, please. So that's what I would say about the apprenticeship applications. So one great thing that people always talk about is how you boost applications. Volunteering, extracurriculars, like how you were head boy in high school, doing certain clubs in college, internships, part-time jobs. Those are all amazing ways to boost your applications, but they are not the only way to boost your applications. You could do so much, and if you can't tell them, like I've said, it's becoming so difficult for them to find out whether you'd be a great colleague. So it's about showing your initiative and being able to present to it. For example, I didn't do any work experience or volunteering. I mean, yeah, work experience in like really big firms. The only work experience I had was for my part-time jobs, and that's it. And if you're able to show something, even if you don't have a job, maybe how you're in a classroom with someone and you're able to show certain things, because the employers don't really want you to know too much about things. It's about your soft skills and how you are as a person. Can you be reliable? Can you be independent and or sort of get things on just like that if it's a busy period? I've had times where my manager is completely gone for a couple of days because there's so much going on. He's off site for client meetings. but I'm still doing my work. I'm still reacting to different things and taking on tasks and all of that. So it's about how you present yourself, less around than what you have to offer in terms of what firms you've worked at. They can be great. You can be very talk about how difficult it was to get into a certain firm at Big Four maybe, or Big Five finance, but it's about how you present to it and how you come off as an individual. Next slide, please. So big thing about sort of what I wanted to know, at least when I was an aspiring apprentice, is about what to expect when you are put into this sort of industry, you're put into this job, you're working with people 2-3 times your age. Big thing with me is I am basically the youngest and most inexperienced person I've met in the bank. Even other apprentices, they might not be straight out of college. They might have taken a gap year, dropped out of uni. I have someone in my department who is 28 and joined on the same cohort as me. And for example, my team are very aging. The youngest person on my team is 38, and the rest are basically retiring within the next 3 to 5 years. So it can be so daunting to be put in a situation where you can't really find a lot to get along with, and that's completely fine. And everyone expects that from you in your team. They know that it's difficult because they were once in your shoes. They were once there, being the youngest, the most inexperienced. But because of that, they would always support you. And the environment at NatWest has been amazing in terms of being supportive, finding opportunities, and getting along with people. And a massive thing that I've noticed as soon as I joined was understanding what the hell they're talking about. They might mention certain jargon that I'm like, what is going on? But it's always natural for you not to know what it means. It could be something that's used because, for example, minutes is a universal term used to take meeting notes. I had no clue what the hell minutes were. I was asked, can you take some minutes? And I was like, sorry, what? But being honest and saying you don't know what this means is completely fine. They don't expect you to know, but sometimes it's subconscious that they're saying something and expecting you to realize, because it's just they realize they work with a lot of people who have been so experienced that they forget that you aren't as experienced. Information to absorb is a massive thing as well. My induction was so packed. I had 3 days in Edinburgh at their Gogarburn facility, and I had a customer meeting on the Thursday, and I had an induction for my apprenticeship on the Friday. I met around a good 250 people in that week, and I was losing my mind because of how much information I had to absorb, how many names I had to remember, and that's very normal. And I'd recommend being organized, taking notes, constantly taking notes. I still have a good few books I have of people's names, what they do. Trying to be as organized as possible is very important. So for the transition, again, being organized, sort of having things very structured. So for example, I have 3 books that I use every single day in my job. I've got one book that's got my to-do list of everything I've got to do with today. How many meetings have I got? Who do I have to chase up? What do I need to do? I've got my book just for meeting notes, just for notes in general. And I've got another book for product specification. So I work in transaction banking, which is large commercial and corporate clients with turnover between 25 million to over 1 billion. I deal with a lot of payments and innovation products, so cards, cash management, that sort of thing. So I have a lot of my product specifications in that one booklet as well. So I carry those 3 around me all the time. And if I didn't, I would honestly go crazy and wonder what the hell is going on. And a great thing is being vocal about what you're struggling with, what you're struggling to get along with. I was very honest with my manager about, I don't know about doing this because I don't know too much about this. For example, like my manager realized the potential in me and he wanted me to lead meetings. And I said to him, let's take a minute and can we push that for a further date? Because I kind of want to get more experience in this. And it's like being honest about how you feel, because at the end of the day, they are there to support you. They're not gonna hold your hand per se, but they're gonna be there by your side and answer any question that you might have and be as supportive as possible as they can. And the last thing I'd say is make the best use of resources. With NatWest, at least, they have people with decades of experience and they've got a mountain of a network. And I kind of went straight ahead and I utilized it. I had sessions with people from different departments, because if you do this, then you can learn more about what the bank do, what your firm does. So you can find out, right, I don't know if I want to work in this current team, but I know this team is quite interesting. So I had meetings with foreign exchange, trade finance, invoice finance, a lot of different teams within the bank. And there's so many ways you can explore. that you don't even realize. And if you utilize that network, you can find out more and find opportunities that might fit with you. Like, for example, I love the team that I work in and the department I work in, because it's a mix of I'm working with customers and I'm also working with colleagues, but then I also get time with myself to work on admin stuff independently. Like my first ever office day, I went to a customer meeting. That customer was Anne Summers. If you know the customer, you know the customer. But I had that first meeting and I was absolutely losing it. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I was honest, and I was honest about what do I need to do to prepare for this meeting. And my manager was just like, okay, just try and learn about the customer, because he didn't expect me to know what the customer does. But then also not to know too much, because at the end of the day, this is my first day in the office and they don't expect me to know too much. Next slide, please. So I thought it'd be quite nice for kind of a snapshot of my calendar. This is just one of my days. So I saw a question around how are things kind of fit around? How do you fit your studies and your working in the same thing? So I've been quite organized in color coding a lot of my to-dos, so a lot of my meetings. So for reference, yellow is my to-do list. So anything I need to do in a random day. Red is my apprenticeship stuff, my meetings, my webinars. Orange are my internal meetings with not with customers, with colleagues. Purple is sort of personal, so lunch, private appointments, like maybe dentistry, so you put it in your calendar. Blue are customer meetings. And then anything that's sort of grayish are either like kind of just auto emails that I might get, or certain calls that I'm not required to attend and I'm not really available to attend. I thought it'd be quite nice to include this, because it also shows one of my big milestones. So on the Tuesday, the second blue meeting is the first customer meeting that I ever led. I was losing it, honestly. On that Monday beforehand, you can see cards meeting before customer meeting. I literally forced my manager to sit in a meeting with me and talk about everything. I told him about everything I'm going to cover. But then that Tuesday, I had that meeting and it was very nice. So I thought it'd be quite nice to kind of show you guys how it's there. So I've blocked off that Friday. You can see it's all in one color, because it shows I'm unavailable. I'm doing my studying. Do not sort of disturb me, because I'm busy at the end of the day. So it also shows one of the upskill sessions on the Wednesday afternoon. So it says TB and HH upskill. So that's me taking advantage of opportunities and finding out a bit more about the bank to call out, maybe, do I want to do this a bit more? So yeah, that's basically what I kind of thought to be nice to mention. And that's all. Does anyone have any questions? God, that's a lot of talking, isn't it, Fazil?
Thank you so much, Hamza. It was really interesting. And I think it's really two things that I particularly picked up on is that you talked about was one, mentioning, talking to lots of different people around the organization. I think that's really key, because you learn about the organization and you also learn how to work with other people. And I think just sharing your calendar is really interesting, because obviously everybody's going to be used to a school timetable, but you also, you have a longer working day and you're actually expected to commit your time to things that other people ask you to do. So I think it's actually really interesting for you to share that. And I'm glad you block out your lunch breaks, because sometimes it's very easy to work through lunch, isn't it, and not get a proper break.
Honestly, my phone's on do not disturb, it's on silent, no one's calling me, I'm taking my hour lunch.
Good stuff. We've got a couple of questions. So do you want to take this one? How do you maintain your mental health alongside work and studying?
So I actually have such a supportive manager and boss. So they are always sort of keen on, have you been all right with work? How have things been? So this year, for example, has been a very, very tough year, I've been told. There's usually quite high highs and low lows throughout the year, but this year has been very, very high. So so it's been a lot, with a lot of meetings that take place, a lot of things to expect from customers. So I found that sort of setting different points of safety, like we just mentioned, that lunch, no one disturbs me for lunch. I'm taking the hour lunch. Do not disturb me. End of. I set boundaries, and it's very important too, because you don't want to become a pushover. I'm very keen on working a 9 to 5. If I need to work longer than 5, if say I work a 9 to 6 one day, I'll take that hour back the following day or sometime that week. That's been really emphasized with me, so that I'm balancing that 35 hours for the week and prioritizing my time. If I don't have a lot to do on a Friday, for example, and I finish everything, I will literally log off and do whatever I want, because that's exactly the sort of atmosphere that they require from you so that you're balancing things productively, basically. So I have coach calls. You can, if you want to go back one slide, Fazia, on the Monday, there's an interim review call. That's with my coach from BPP. So I had a call with her to discuss how things are, where things are headed, and if I have any concerns that need to be explored. I have regular calls with my manager, so that's not really diarised. But on that Monday, I have that call. So it's very important for them to kind of be aware of, am I struggling with certain things, and do I need more support? So, for example, in April, I took 2 weeks off for my birthday, and I had a deadline that week. So what I asked for them was to push my deadline a few weeks forward because I wanted to prioritize that time because I've got annual leave. I'm not going to work during annual leave. And they were completely supportive. And I think because of this environment, I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm a lot more calm and collective.
Thanks, Hamza. A really detailed response there. I'm going to ask you to do a quick answer to Chidinma, who's asking, because she's planning on applying to NatWest, when do you think she should start applying? And then we're going to move on to Elamaran. Thank you.
So this year there's been a bit of it's been quite difficult having people come into the bank because there was a bit of a hiring freeze earlier. But typically the apprenticeships open up around spring time, so around between March to May time, they're usually open. And when it comes to any firm, you need to try applying for it within the first week because it reduces your chances of actually getting in after the first week. It's not about you at the end of the day. Sometimes it's just a numbers game of who applies first. It's a first come, first serve basis. So around springtime, I'm assuming they've either still open or they're kind of closed, but it's very difficult to get into it now. A big thing to mention as well is NatWest partners with a different charity known as LTSB. They essentially are for and it's for low-income households and sort of stuff like that. So they offer a sort of program around preparing you for NatWest, and they guarantee you an interview if you pass their sort of program. They release sort of summertime as well, but this is more something that you should focus on next year because right now I think people are just getting offered jobs and stuff like that around the bank.
Thanks, Hamza. When you get a second, do you mind putting that reference in the chat so everybody can see about that support that they can get? So, Elamaran, are you ready? Hamza, I'll get you to mute as well.
Could you mute?
I am.
Just typing. Thank you.
So over to you, Elamaran. Thank you.
Yeah, so hi there all. So my name's Elamaran Arvindin. So I'm a global banking apprentice at BNP Paribas. And what that simply is kind of like similar to Hamza as well. It's like a bit of relationship management, but it's also a bit of credit. So could we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so I'll just briefly talk about who I am and talk about my experience. I want to try to get you guys a lot more advice on the application stages because I know every year it's getting more competitive every year. So yeah, I work at BNP as a global banking apprentice. I studied the IMC, so it's called the Investment Management Certificate, and I'm on a level 4 apprenticeship. So BNP offers level 3s and 4s, not the usual level 6 you see at different banks, which is a degree apprenticeship. So yeah, I've had the chance to be shortlisted for Apprentice of the Year twice by my trading provider BPP, but also the Multicultural Apprenticeship Awards. So on the side, it's kind of like not my business, but it's more my fun time. I've got a project called Project Good, and what that simply is it's just a bunch of opportunities for students like you to do work experience, summer schools, all sorts. But yeah, before I was an apprentice, I'd say I'd like to talk a bit about myself, about work experience, education, and yeah, it's extracurriculars. I love the point that Hamza mentioned about extracurriculars and volunteering because that's all I did in year 12. At the time, I didn't know it was going to help me, but I did all of that stuff just because I enjoyed it to an extent. Like I really loved chess. I really wanted to do debating, even though I was a very shy person, but it really did push me a lot. Great, really good moments. Whereas my education, yeah, I did do economics and astrography. I also did further maths, but a funny story is I dropped it 1 week before my exams because I had a few final stage offers. I had a few final stage offers for BNP Paribas. I had 4. So it's like there's a pretty good chance I get in. So I just kind of didn't like further maths and I dropped it. But yeah, in terms of work experience, I don't think work experience is poor. And I had one at Squaredis, a pretty big firm, but I had a lot of inside days. And the best way to describe my journey is year 12 was more extracurriculars, and I was doing absolutely nothing else. And when I got to year 13, I kind of started realizing, oh, I've got to actually make a choice. Go uni, apprenticeships, work experience. So I started a bit later than most people nowadays. but I think that's kind of been my journey so far. So next slide, please. And yeah, just before I move on to all the advice, maybe a bit about my my experience as an apprentice. Is that working? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. I think the slides aren't working, but someone can move that. Would appreciate that. But yeah, I'll talk to you about my experience as an apprentice. Obviously, it's not on the slide, but I've had a chance. I think the best way to describe being an apprentice, in my opinion, is that every apprentice has their own little story. Everyone does all sorts of different things. Some people do side projects, some people do another part-time job, even as an apprentice. Some people just enjoy their time in the free time. I think the best way to describe me would be I like going to networking events. I don't like to say networking, but I like going to events and just meet other apprentices, other people in the industry. I've had a chance to go to different banks, different accounting firms like KPMG, Bloomberg, Hogan and Lovells. So I've been to a lot of places, in my opinion, and I just kind of like talking to people and getting to know other people. So that's the best way to describe me as a person. And I think the best way for any of you aspiring apprentices to go into an apprenticeship would be try to be proactive, try and meet people, like go to events, meet another person, and just kind of expand your network because you don't know who you're gonna meet. I've met so many incredible people, I should say, just by going to events, and you eventually you start getting recognized and you start getting invited to events yourself. And I've had that fortunate opportunity well, I've had a fortunate chance to have those opportunities just come to me without even me applying. But I think, yeah, if we can move to the next slide. It's, so yeah, that's luckily came about. But yeah, I feel like every apprentice has a different experience, like I mentioned. Like everyone does different things. Like for example, myself, I did a JP Morgan run. I can get you a prop. See, I got this shirt just on Thursday, and like literally everyone does different things, and I think it's really important. So people's experiences is really important, and it's up to you how you make your apprenticeship. You can enjoy it, you can not enjoy it. It kind of depends. I can understand why people see why it's a 50% dropout rate because it's hard to balance, like Hamza said. And you just really have to be proactive. You have to be you're very organized, if I'm being very honest. And you just have to try your best. But I'll get into more about the application stages. If we can move to the next slide, please. So yeah, I like that doc as well. It's a pretty cool doc, Hogan and Lovells. So yeah, take a picture of that. And then yeah, I've also had a chance to do school talks. So just one more, please. So yeah, I've given you a bit more of a screenshot available slide for the next two, so maybe you can take some things out. I don't want to go into the basics, like the CV, it matters only in your final stage when like your senior bank or a senior partner, whatever, is looking at it and they're seeing the CV and they're kind of judging you on it. And they do quiz you on it a lot, so be prepared. But I don't think CV matters too much in my opinion. The more application advice I want to give you guys is probably doing your video interviews and your assessment centers. Your video interviews are probably the highest chance of most people like not passing on through the next stage. Like there could be like 400 people doing a video interviews and only like 20 of you get in. Like it's the biggest cutoff rate in a sense. So like 80, 90% of you might get cut off and you won't get to the next stage. And the funny story is I never ever passed a video interview, but I learned so much and I've had the chance to mentor a few people in this current application season and they've all passed their video interviews, like absolutely smashed it. So my best advice is simply record yourself, like talking to a camera and just looking at it and answering a basic question like why degree apprenticeship. It helps so much. And the trick I always learn, and it says it here, it's by a person called Vin, and he's simply a communication speaker, and he has this really amazing method I love. It's called your vocal and visual image. So imagine you record yourself answering 3-minute question about why you want to do a degree apprenticeship. You want to use your vocal image and you purely don't want to look at the video, you just want to hear it. So you want to grab your phone and just hear how you sound. Like, are you speaking fastly? Are you speaking so slow? Like the tone and like the emotion behind your voice. And it really does like help you a lot. And then the second is visual image. That's like how you present. Like, are you slouching? Are you standing? Are you looking directly in the camera? Like, how does your background look? Is it plain? Like all of these things. And it really does help you a lot, not just in the video interview, but also in the assessment center when other people assessing you. That's what they see of you. Most of the time, you don't see yourself. You're seeing it from your point of view, but you don't see it from another person's point of view. So recording yourself is probably the best tip anyone can do because you'll learn so much about yourself and how you present yourself. I think going on to assessment centers, another big tip I love giving this to people is get there extremely early. And the reason I say this is especially if you're introverted, it makes it so much easier on the day. Because let's say I go 30 minutes early, right? Every other person's coming in to the reception. They go to the receptionist, hey, go sit down in the lounge room. You'll obviously see those people and you can start a conversation and it's a lot easier for you. And then you get to know names and get to know people just a bit before. Whereas if you come 5, 10 minutes before, think about this, there's already like maybe 10 people there. It's a bit more harder to start a conversation, especially if you're more introvert like myself. So you kind of have the power. If you're the first one in the room, you get the chance to just talk with people and it makes you a lot more nervous, a lot less nervous, I should say. Whereas if you're going there and there's already people sitting down talking, you may feel a bit more awkward and uncomfortable. So that's a good tip I like to tell people. Just get there early. And obviously it's good being punctual. I know like 30 minutes sounds a bit silly to a few people, but to me it really helped me a lot. And I just sat down, talked to the person next to me, talked to the next person coming in, and it was a lot more like of an open environment. Everyone was talking with each other because we'd always just start talking. Whereas I remember towards the end, someone came in and just sat by themselves, so it does make it harder. I think for assessment centers, it is a game of luck sometimes with your group tasks. Like in your interviews, you can perform as well as you want, but a group task, it's completely random in a sense. And what my opinion is that I had people in my group task that constantly were talking to people, and honestly, it looked pretty bad from my point of view because I knew they were doing bad. My best tip for like a group task is don't be a leader. You got to remember there's 5 or 6 other people within your group. The recruiter wants to see like a portion of time, like 20, 15, maybe 30% of your time basically talking, but they also want to see everyone individually. If you start taking up 50% of the time, yeah, you might think you've done a lot of good things, but you've taken away from other people, so it's harder for them to assess. So yeah, I think speak when you have value, and the best way to separate yourself in a group task nowadays, you hear all these things like be a timekeeper, be a leader. Um, I think there's so many different like kind of roles, but the best thing to do that no one can ever get rid of is create a different idea. The entire group is saying, let's do this. Give an idea about what doing something completely different. Because two, even if the group doesn't go with your idea, it shows that you're still creative and you're thinking of good ideas. Like your ability, like people don't want a yes man in a team. You want people that want to give ideas, going to be useful and going to give like kind of good pitches. So like giving an innovative idea or a different idea from the group is really powerful because it separates you from everybody else. If everyone's like a sheep in a sense and saying, God, let's just do it this way, and you say, no, let's do it this way, it looks better on you. Even if the group doesn't go with your idea, at least you've given an idea. So yeah, that's my best tips, I'd say, for a group task. I'm sure you can see a lot of interview tips online as well, but group tasks are a bit more luck based. But just try speak when you have value. Like every time I talked, I always said, why don't we do this? What do you think? Don't try to sell people out. I had this happen to me. One of my assessment centers, someone said, you've been awfully quiet, Elamaran. What do you think? Don't do that because the recruiter sees you and you're clearly just trying to throw someone off the boat. I remember in my group task for BNP, I just looked at Laugh and said, what do you think, Harry? And like I said it so casually, like I knew him in a sense. Like I don't really care about it too much. Like don't try to throw people off the boat. Just try be your best to present yourself, and don't try hog the time. Just speak when you have value, because then it seems like you're more of an impactful person. I would say. So yeah, like there's no point waffling for like 50% of the time. So yeah, next slide please. So yeah, there's another screenshot available thing. So what I would do in the summer. I know a lot of you are doing like solicitor apprenticeships, sort of few engineering ones. Like hopefully my advice is like still applicable to all. I know it varies a bit depending on industry, but the first thing I'd say is really do create trackers on this because it makes you so much more organized. Like having a list of not just the firms, but also like interview questions is good. Like ask current apprentices, what kind of interview questions did you face during the process? Something I learned at the networking event, I was a panelist there. One of the guys at JP Morgan, he got asked in his final stage interview, why not Morgan Stanley next door? So why JP over Morgan Stanley? Like questions like that. Like if I had to answer that, I would have been absolutely finished, to be fair. But like questions like that, you like there are a few niche questions you get during those interviews, and those are the ones you should always be prepared for. Like Hamza said himself, like would you rather be a team player or an individual, like comes up. I think the hardest one I got was a commercial awareness question. I talked about tariffs, and then the VP, the vice president, he started asking me, but why do you think this? And why this? And why this? I thought I was doing a horrendous job. At the time, he was just like, no, you're actually learning and you're trying to prove a point in a sense. So like, I think questions vary a lot. So try to get like at least 20, 30 questions. You may think there's only like 10, but I can promise you they can ask you a ridiculous amount of questions. And it could be a wide range. Like a question I faced once was how do you describe yourself in 3 words? Like that was like a telephone interview question. Like I expected why the company, why the apprenticeship, and they said it was like, how would your family and friends describe you in 3 words? Absolutely froze me. Absolutely. I thought I failed the interview, but luckily passed through that. Don't know how. But yeah, second point, I think, yeah, have a lot of examples of scenarios, have stories to tell about yourself, sell yourself in a sense, like extracurriculars, unpaid work experience, door to door, like Hamza said, that's not a good point. And even like, I know virtual like work experience or any work experience is good, like Jaden mentioned, but try have a story about it in a sense. Like it's you're your own person and you need to create a story about why you should do it in a sense. So yeah, like even if you've got no work experience, no extracurriculars, do something this summer, go help your neighbor next door. For example, say I'll do the leaves or something, I'll collect your leaves or I'll water your flowers. Stuff like that. It's like so silly. I've heard so many silly examples being used. I didn't think it's not silly, but it's just so many shocking answers I never knew. And I've seen other apprentices use them like, yeah, I used to like take out the trash for my neighbors and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm surprised. Like I didn't even think of that as a thing. But he used that in interviews and somehow won for him. So separating yourself is really important with your own stories. I think to be, like I said, recording yourself is the best thing, not just in video interviews, but like your assessment centers when you're in person doing interviews. Like it really does tell you a lot about who you are yourself. And to me, I think that if I had that tip when I was applying, I would have got multiple offers easily. I've told people that tip and I've analyzed it for them as well. And that is like the number one best thing you could probably do because you just find out so much about yourself and how other people perceive you, how your teacher perceives you, how your friends perceive you. So that's my best tip by far for applications to go into apprenticeships. And then I think for like basic questions like why degree apprenticeship, why the company, like when people ask you why the company, you have to know the most nichest fact about a company no one else is going to mention. If you mention values, that's good, but so can like every other person. If you mention like this random fact that no one knows of, it makes you separate yourself from everybody else. And a funny story I had in my final stage interview at BNP Paribas, the VP asked me, I asked him, why did you choose me? And so we're just going back home. I asked him, why did you choose me? And his reason behind it was you needed a degree apprenticeship in a sense. So he mentioned how every other interviewer was like saying they do different things. I'd go university, I'd do this like I'd go another firm basically, or doing this. I said I'd probably be here next year, hopefully applying in the same position again. Like I'd just be take a gap year and apply again. Like I have university offers. I did tell him that, but I said I'd rather do the apprenticeship. Be really certain on what you want and don't try give like a second option. I'll just go university. Make sure you really actually need and want that apprenticeship. That's my best opinion. And then, yeah, like seek external guidance. Oh, this is the most loveliest thing I've ever had. Like when I was applying, I asked my friend, his name's Olamide, really amazing guy at Deutsche Bank. And he had an offer from 2 places at the time. I had nothing. I had an assessment center coming up. I asked him, what did you do in the assessment center? What's it like? And I just kind of learned a lot from him and he gave me a lot of good tips. But I just kept asking different people, like current apprentices, incoming apprentices, so even people that are applying with you that have already been exposed to like assessment centers, ask them about how their experience was. And maybe they can tell you something you don't know already. Joining communities is another best thing to do. I met an amazing friend named Hasna as well. We were just talking on a community one day, and then he told me, oh, yeah, he had, I think, Imperial and UCL Maths, and he had a JP Morgan eventual offer. He went to a really good school. I knew nothing about him, but we were just having a normal chat in a group chat, and I got to know him really well. He's a great friend now. So really do like talk and engage in those communities, meet people and make new friends in a sense, because you don't know how they can help you and you can help them back. So that's what I would say. And yeah, to wrap up, just really be proactive in a sense. If you want to apply to apprenticeships, know exactly why you want to apply. And then the best thing to do, just record yourself because you learn so much about yourself. So yeah, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. And yeah, here's my LinkedIn below. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Elamar, and that was really some really insightful things that you're sharing there, some really great advice and tips, which, you know, from young men like yourself, Jade and Hamza, Alamar, and that, you know, you've been through the process, you're working the job now, you're doing the training. It's really helpful, I think, to our mentees and candidates applying for our program to hear firsthand experience and learn from you as well, and some really great advice and tips. So there was one question, Elamar, and you mentioned virtual work experience, or Chidin was asking about work experience and asking, is virtual work experience valid? What would you say to that?
I think yes, it depends on what you learn. Like, I feel like even normal work experience, there's not much you can really touch upon in a sense, maybe a group task. But yeah, don't downplay virtual work experiences because it's virtual. At least it's something. It's better than having nothing at all. So yeah, I think virtual experience is good. Like my first one was SpringPod, and then I had an inside day in Bluebug. Like the first thing I started was with virtual stuff. There's nothing wrong if you only have virtual things. You still have stories to tell about yourself, like extracurriculars, volunteering, unpaid work experience. There's so many different things you can do. So don't think about if it's virtual work experience better than in person. Maybe there's a few benefits, like you get fast track, like Jaden mentioned with PwC, but I wouldn't say so. I feel like virtual is just simply as good as anything in person. Like there isn't going to be a massive difference in what you're going to be learning at the end of the day.
Yeah,
But
and I
that's just
think
my
with
opinion.
virtual work experience, actually, you know, you can say that you did it because you were determined to learn something about the company if you weren't able to
Exactly.
secure an in-person work experience. So always sort of explain not only what you learned, why you did it that way, and then also what you got, how you developed yourself as a result of that work experience, whether it's virtual or in person. So Elamon, I wanted to pick up and back you up on a couple of things that you said during your presentation. Involving others in an assessment centre. You were talking about, you know, somebody, you said tried to throw you under the bus or something like that. And I suppose I would, you know, that can happen. I remember it happening in an assessment centre that I was at many, many years ago, where, and again, this is talking to your point about not taking over the task. Where somebody decided we had to group task was we had to bid for a pay rise for somebody in our department, and somebody just decided, one of the people in the group decided she was just going to be really assertive and say, okay, my director's told me I need to get this pay rise for my person, so there's no point having a discussion. And everybody was a little bit stunned. And then actually I just managed to draw up the courage to say, well, actually the decision making is in this group, not by your director. And then we actually were able to have a conversation about it. But I think the way to explain what you were trying to say is involve others, but without judgment. You know, if somebody precedes their request for you to make a contribution by saying, oh, you've been very quiet, they're trying to draw attention to the fact you've been quiet rather than genuinely asking for your opinion. So, you know, no judgment, everybody there is equal and everybody needs to be able to make a contribution. And just on the point of, you know, making new suggestions, Elamar, that you said, I'll just share quickly with you, and we've got some more questions that I do want to put to the three of you, but I'll quickly share one thing with you. I was recently on a Warwick Business School leadership program, and we did a module on decision making. And one of the key things there was that, you know, when senior people want to make a decision, and if you're doing some work preparing research or presenting options, the lecturer actually said to us, always require a minimum of 3 options, because nobody wants to just have one option on which to base a decision. They need to be able to compare and contrast different things. So always having more ideas and more suggestions is great, so that people can consider different angles. So I really back you up on that, Elamar, and I think that was a really great point to make. So I'm going to go through the questions. Just one point: if you haven't got a mentor, apply to Migrant Leaders, and you know you can get into our program, install our app, and get yourself a mentor. So, question here from Fatima that we didn't ask before. Any one of you, you're welcome to take it. So just, you know, put your microphone back on and answer the question. So how is your university or training at college and work 9 to 5 split up for the days for you? And have you ever felt imposter syndrome or felt an impact working and surrounded with many older than you? Hamza, I know you touched on this earlier about multi-generational workforces now. Do you want to maybe pick up on that a little bit?
Sure. So I kind of did mention already about the kind of compact work week. So Monday to Thursday is my work week, and then Friday is my study day. I can move that around if I need to be. So, for example, next week I am volunteering. At the bank, you have to volunteer like 3 days to something you are deeply sort of something you really want to do, and I quite like giving back and things like this, for example. So I've got a volunteering activity next Friday, and I moved around my training day to the Thursday before that. So it's really split to whatever you decide. I know some other apprentices who have sort of like a couple of weeks off work just to study around exam periods. I'm not sure if you guys have the same thing, but it depends on the course. And when it comes to working with people significantly older than you, I quite like to joke around how young I am because most of the time they've worked longer than I've been alive. And it's a very funny thing to start off on, but I quite like to analyze the person beforehand so they don't get offended. But no, it can be a lot, and it definitely has required you to change your sense of humor. I see about 10 dad jokes in my team group chat around each week. Honestly, it's draining. But it's just sort of how you adapt. At the end of the day, it's this regardless of age, you can get on with a lot of people. Like for example, during my interview, I realized my manager and I both like F1, so we spoke a bit about F1 during the interview. We got along like that, and we still do exactly. We still do. For example, he's got F1 Lego for him and his kids, and I'm like, right, I want to get that. And it's like that dynamic still continuing, regardless of trying to find different things that kind of align with you and your colleagues or your manager is really, really important.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Just before I ask the next question, I'll just mention to everybody that I put 4 links in the chat of different documents that we've produced so if you can download those now. The last one, I will just explain it. It refers to university applications. It's really relevant for any application. So if you need a template to help you develop an action plan, please go ahead and use that. You can just click on those links and it will take you to those documents and you can download them. So the next question I've got here is, and perhaps Elamara, you can take this one first, is can you share one best bit of being an apprentice and one not so great part of being an apprentice?
Okay, so I'll just quickly touch on the last question as well. I think they mentioned imposter syndrome, and that is a real thing. Like most apprentices I've seen, including myself, you do face that. And it's a bit of a weird feeling. You don't expect it. Like even now, I sometimes feel like, what am I doing? I haven't learned this, I haven't learned this. Like there's so much to intake, and it's normal to doubt yourself in a sense. But I think the best thing to do is just understand that you're supposed to be learning, even if you're a second year apprentice or third year, you're always constantly learning. So don't be ashamed if you don't know something. It's better to ask a question than just stay silent in a sense. And I've done that before. I've stayed silent a lot more in the beginning, but I've been a bit more vocal now, saying, I don't know this, I don't know this. Like, can you teach me? So yeah, but to go to the main question, the best thing is probably I really just going to events and just meeting other apprentices, seeing how their experience has been, honestly, because it's really like an eye opener. Everyone's got a different like structure, every different firm. Like I met tech apprentices, engineering ones, construction, law ones. Obviously, I know banking ones quite a lot more often because I'm in banking, but just getting to know a lot of different interesting people is always a fun thing to do. Like sometimes I go for lunch with like Vodafone apprentices because their offices are nearby. So it's like stuff like that. Like touching on that point, like there are a lot more older people, but there are still young people, and you can always just talk to other apprentices and having that community. I think yeah, the worst thing would probably be I feel like yeah, that idea of imposter syndrome that you don't know everything and you feel like you should know everything. It really does make you doubt yourself sometimes. And I've touched on that already, but like I think the best thing to do is just try like explain that with your line manager or like try be vocal about it, like Hamza said, because the more support you get, the more things you ask for, the more support you'll get at the end of the day. So yeah, I'd say the worst thing is probably not knowing as much, but it's fine in my opinion.
Thanks, Elamara. And I think to be honest, be fair to yourself as well, because you're in that learning phase. So not knowing everything is to be expected, but showing motivation and curiosity to want to learn is key. I think that actually came up in a presentation that we had from one of our mentors earlier this week. Curiosity and positive curiosity is really going to work for you. So Jaden or Hamza, would you like to sort of share with us your best bit and your worst bit, if you're happy to do that?
I can take it. Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a lot of good bits about being an apprentice. I'd say you get to work with many different people every day, and you get to learn a lot of new things that otherwise you wouldn't have learned. So I remember when I first started, it just could even link into the imposter syndrome thing, but I got put into a partner meeting for some reason. So I was there to take notes on a partner meeting, take minutes. And the hearing the depth and the understanding of the conversation, it can really change your output and reflections on things. But also the social aspect of it as well. So I really do enjoy that as an apprentice. Something that is quite difficult. I found that if you manage your studies and your work at the same time, it can be difficult if you don't really have a planned structure for that. So I'd say my advice for managing your studies and your exam and your work at the same time is to create a timetable for yourself and to try to stick to that timetable as much as possible. I know most offices are open a lot more than even the Saturdays and Sundays if you want to. So if you want to have a private space so you can use that for studying, you can. Make sure that you stay on top of things.
Thanks, Jaden. That's really helpful.
No problem.
Was it Hamza? Hamza's the last one to speak on that one, wasn't
Was
it?
it Hamza? I forgot about the imposter syndrome one. Going back to that, actually, I'm not saying lie, but kind of fake your confidence until your confidence becomes real is exactly what I did. I was honest
Fake it
about
till you make it, Hamza. That's the phrase.
basically fake it till you make it, but I don't mean as in lie and say that you know something. I don't know if you can hear the siren 1 second. Okay. Yeah, literally, like I was faking my confidence significantly, and as soon as I was done with the meeting, I was like, what have I just sat through? How is this what I'm doing now? And it's got to the point now where I am confident literally just sitting in a meeting. For example, I've had times with my manager has had to drop off a meeting quite early because he's got other priorities, and I've led the meeting on his behalf. And if I look back from when I first started, I would have never imagined getting to this stage. And it's again faking that confidence till you actually make it. So yeah, going back to that anyway. The pros and I say the goods and bads of my apprenticeship. So again, like Jaden said, the structure part is so nice. From my end, I got provided a massive timetable of every webinar that takes place, every deadline, and I've just added it to my calendar. It's very, very structured. I have interim reviews with my coach to go over what I'm going at, what grade I want to work at, if I'm meeting expectations, sort of that end. And I do not like my off-the-job training. Everyone agrees with this. It's so annoying and so boring. But also sometimes the course itself can be quite boring and you don't find interest in it. And I've expressed this to my manager so much that I can't be bothered anymore. But I still sit through it. And it can be very jarring and very boring that, oh my God, I'm doing this again. And it's a full day of like a full working day that I'm spending on my training. It's got to the point personally where I don't really attend my webinars. I've agreed with my coach that I will sort of section out those webinar like time periods. It's 2 hours for a webinar. I won't sit for the webinar, but I will do the work for that during that time allocated, and then go back and maybe forward what I did to my coach so that they know I've actually been keeping up. So that's definitely something that I find quite boring and annoying, but it's sort of, you just gotta try and keep persevering until you're actually finished, to be honest.
It's really fascinating to me how you can manage it flexibly, Hamza. You clearly have your own preferences and you have the confidence to negotiate flexibility for the things that you prefer and the things that you're not so keen on. And that's really important.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's really important, I think, for you to get yourself that good work-life balance and also to get job satisfaction.
I think it's because of what's been reiterated to me since day one. Not even day one at the bank. My manager and my boss agreed to come. So I'm based in Luton, obviously. They came from London to Luton before I even started my job to meet for me with coffee, to get to know me, and so that I can get to know what I'm expected to do for the job. And they've always been supportive of me and said, speak your mind, be honest, because I'll be quite frank. My first team meetings I attended was like, it was hell, not hell in a bad way, but they were like very brutally honest about struggles. and difficulties they've been experiencing, that they set the example of, I will do the same now. I will be honest about how I'm feeling. And because of that, I am honest about, okay, I don't want to do this, but I do want to do this. I want to utilize this, for example, and then progressively taking on more work whilst also positively managing my time at the same time.
Sounds great. Sounds like you've got a really clear idea of what you want to be doing. And we chatted earlier, didn't we? And you've got various plans that you've got on the go. So well done, all of you. I must say, thank you to all of you for sharing so generously your experiences and your advice and little nuggets of tips that I hope the people that have joined us have found helpful. Any final comments before, or final questions before we round up for the day? Please, if you want to put your questions in the chat or put your hand up and put your camera on, you can ask a question. Jade and Elamar and Hamza, any final comments you'd like to share before we wind up?
I'd like to say it's not the end of the day if things don't go well. I got my apprenticeship offer after I got my results day, So it can be difficult, it can be boring, it can be so upsetting. But if it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. I had 3 rejections on my birthday and was literally about to break down, but I still continued. So you'll get rejected. It's completely natural. It's not always you. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. Who comes first? Who's got more connections? Stuff like that. Nepotism's a really big pain in the ass. But it's okay, and things will also. It's not the end of the day if you take a gap year and try again the following year, cohort year.
Thanks. And I think building that resilience from a few knockbacks is really important as well, and using that as a learning opportunity so that you can think about what didn't go so well and what you do differently next time. I think, every knockback is a learning opportunity and a chance to grow.
Yeah.
We've got a question in the chat there about, do you need to put all of your experiences on your CV? Elamaran, have you got something in response to that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much you have. If you have a lot, maybe cut down, I'd say. I feel like have a good balance between a few work experiences and maybe a few extracurriculars or volunteering, because it shows the balance in a sense. Still shows you're proactive, but still shows you got stories behind yourself and you got a personality. So maybe find that balance and see which ones are the most impactful. If you have a lot of work experience, see which ones are the most impactful and which ones are the most relevant. Like if you're applying to HSBC, just put in a work experience, for example. So like stuff like that. So it's just doesn't matter too much, I'd say. Like, I feel like just finding that balance is the best opinion. So yeah, if you have a lot, then maybe cut down on things you haven't learned as much or gained as much. But if you've got the right amount, that's perfect, fits in. So yeah.
In the download document, I've created a little document, a guide there on tips for applying for apprenticeships. In that, what we've put is, try and keep your CV to 1 page. And what I would say, just to support Elamaran, is if you're going to include work experiences, include the ones that are relevant to that job that you're applying for. So if there are some that are not relevant to a particular job, then leave them out and give the people that are reading your application something to connect with that relates to what their company does. So if it's banking or consultancy, whatever, legal, if you've got relevant work experience, include it. And if it's irrelevant, then leave it off. And have a master of your CV that you can amend for each job that you apply for. I'm going to just respond on that comment about connections in terms of connections are great in as much as, if you have a mentor, if you know people, like Alamara was talking about, speaking to other apprentices and speaking to people in communities, they're connections as well. So it doesn't have to be connections in those specific companies that you want to work in, but by connections, they're people that you can learn from. So if you're fortunate enough to have connections in the company that you want to work with, and they will be able to share things with you about that company, and they'll be able to give you tips and advice about what works well, what doesn't work so well. I think more and more people, corporates are more and more aware of, biases and removing unfairness in terms of the way they consider applications. So you don't have to have connections. It could help. On the other hand, I think I saw a recent report where actually those people that have got connections with their company, there are higher expectations on them. So if things don't work out well for them, they perhaps don't last as long in a company where expectations are not there from senior people. So it's worth thinking about.
I can add on to that if you'd like as well.
Please do.
So what I meant by connections in terms of, like, for example, when I mentioned motivation fit is what's drawn you, you can make a connection to the firm you're applying to. For example, I looked up a bunch of NatWest employees, and I found one of the directors of commercial banking, in the certain, basically they're called DCBs, I've learned now. They look after a set of relationship managers to look after clients. So they manage a bunch of colleagues. I reached out to one of them, and he was very, very sweet, and he arranged a phone call with me to talk about different things. And I mentioned him in my interview, and I kind of stood out significantly from that. So it's giving them more reasons not to say yes to you. It's giving them less no's and more yeses for you. So coincidentally, the person that I reached out to actually worked with my now line manager. So he said, right, so let's put 2 and 2 together, and I'll ask that next connection that I made. So what he did is he ended up reaching out to the colleague I reached out to and said, what did you think of Hamza? Stuff like that. And why did he reach out to you and stuff? And it's about trying to give them, again, fewer no's. Try to push them to the point where you're a fantastic candidate and you're someone who they would be disappointed in not getting.
Really good point, Hamza. Thank you for adding that. Okay, so
Sorry to add on.
yes,
Sorry to
please.
interrupt and add on. I think I'm going to give a bit of a different twist. I feel like from what I've experienced and seen with other people, yes, people that have connections with the firms sometimes do, I don't want to say gain an advantage, but I think what they do have is that they know a lot more about the role and why the company in a sense. And obviously, like you mentioned, when you mentioned people's name, it does help you. Obviously, you can still like message someone on LinkedIn or try connect with them. That's what I did. And just try like find someone that's in the role you're applying to and just send them a LinkedIn request, maybe a personalized one. You only have a few of them on a free account. But like try to do that in a sense. But yeah, my personal opinion, I think I have seen it and I have seen it being used, and like kind of that nepotism has been involved in the apprenticeship space. And I've seen a few people talk about it as well. I feel like it does exist to an extent, but it's not as big as you think. And you just need to work much more hard and get a better understanding of why the company, why the role, and really master those basic questions. So yeah, that's what I've personally seen from my perspective at least.
Great
But I
stuff.
don't think it puts you in a disadvantage at all, as much as you think it would.
Thanks, Salamara. Thank you. Okay, listen, we're running over time. I'm going to make Anne-Marie's question the last one. Jaden, thank you for encouraging people to join Migrant Leaders, that, you know, for the industry professionals and connections there. That's great. Thank you for that. So the last question is, how did you decide between going to university and doing a degree apprenticeship or apprenticeship? What advice would you give to someone trying to make that choice?
I'm happy to take that one if no one else wants to. I kind of had a story where both my brothers went to university, and then I was going to go university originally, but I realized that apprenticeship route was much more of a it's much more better in a sense and fitted me personally. But I feel like you can apply for both. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's see if you like when it comes to after the exams are finished and you've got offers from both, really have a sit down and see if you actually want to do an apprenticeship or you actually want to go university. Really do talk to people about their experiences and see how like what they've experienced and what they think. But I would say you kind of have to get the offer first for both of them and then make a decision afterwards, because I know people really do talk about this question, should I choose university or apprenticeship? I feel like a lot of people talk about that. I feel like get the offers first and decide in the summer, because you have a lot of months to decide. You have a lot of people you can talk to, just ask questions, silly questions about. So that's what I would do. Try get the offers first, and then you have that entire summer where you can just kind of decide between your exams finishing to all the way results day. So yeah, pros
Great.
and cons.
Thank you so much, all of you. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody that joined us. If our speakers can stay with me just for a few minutes, that would be really helpful. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. I hope you found that interesting. I certainly did. I think there's lots of advice and tips that you've got there. I've shared the documents with you, so please do download those as well. And good luck with your applications when they happen. Goodbye.